Speedrunners in general really don't keep tricks secret. They're generally very open about it, especially since most of the time they'll like stream attempts and then people will see them. But whenever there's a discovery, someone will always come out and say, hey, I found this. I feel like in terms of the games I play, it's definitely White 2 challenge mode. Even if it wasn't challenge mode, it would still be the hardest. There's a lot of very interesting strats you have to do, plus the power creep goes up very, very quickly. Berg can cause problems. Like Clay will just use a turn 1 bulldoze, you're slower, and then he just completely destroys you. Do you guys like want to know like how like the process goes for making those backflips? And of course we Zapdos. Oh no, that's not substitute. Who knows, that might come in handy. Okay, maybe that flash.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Skilling Podcast, where we chat and get to know passionate content creators, competitive players, and all voices who continue to make the Pokemon community incredible. Today's guest is a Pokemon challenge, solo run, and is a speedrunner at heart. Taking on a variety of mainline games, he puts himself and his Pokemon to the test. From seeing which starters can complete their game the fastest, to Pokemon Stadium Gym Leader Castle's speedrunner challenges, his goal is to be as fast as possible and to show the true potential and skill it takes to complete these Pokemon challenges of solo running and speedrunning. It's our friend, Speedrunner0218. How's it going, my friend?
How long did that take to type out?
Just a little bit. We were scouting through there. You got a pretty big catalog on there, my friend, of fun challenges that you've done.
Yeah, I've had the channel for over 6 years.
Oh wow! Wow, that's awesome.
Since I was like 15.
Dang,
that's really cool.
So I haven't gone back and checked that far back. Did you just recently start kind of doing stuff consistently, or was it kind of just on and off for several years before you got into it? Or
I would say it was on and off until I think I started trying to get more consistent around like late 2021 when I started watching a bunch of other people, like Scott's Thoughts mainly for one. I saw you had RBY up a month or so ago.
Yeah,
I'm hoping to like do things with him, but we still got to get back with him. Yeah, he's a real interesting guy with how he does stuff.
Yeah, I like it a lot.
So yeah, from like 2018 when I founded the channel up till 2021, it was just like I'll just run whatever I feel like, get a time that I think is good, and just upload that. But you can't really grow off of that. Like I think to get 100 subs took me close to 4 or 5 years.
Oh wow! Yeah, it's a grind.
That's crazy.
Not a good.
It is.
Good, yeah. Doing that method was definitely not a good way to grow.
It's like
awesome.
I think one of the things that like content creation and like really showing your passion, it's really interesting to kind of try and like learn how to do that in the style and like the confines of YouTube's algorithm. It's always like it's just a jungle out there, man. You never know exactly what's gonna hit, so it's like you kind of gotta find a style, and it'll be good. But the thing is one of the things that we loved, kind of from the initial get go when Josh and I were talking about having you on and things like that, is I love the variety of the challenges that you're doing. I love seeing you got Diamond and Pearl on there. Josh was just mentioning that prep for the interview he was watching back the Drapion challenge, and I love the idea of all the starters going up against each other in their respective game, seeing who's the fastest. So I think you have a lot of fun ideas, and it's really cool to kind of see how you're putting it forth and kind of taking your own spin on the solo run and speedrunning challenge of everything,
Yeah. Definitely the 2 and 3-way versus stuff, credit to Scott for it was his original idea, but he said like if you want to do your own version of it, go ahead. And they're definitely like 5 times the amount of work of like a single one-on-one. Like I think doing 3 separate videos would have been less work than that. But they were still fun to do.
That's awesome. Well, before we kind of get like really deep into your content, into the nitty gritty of your expertise, we kind of want to get to know you more on just just a basic level, kind of get to know you and your passions and things like that. So outside of Pokemon, is there any interest in hobbies that you have that kind of take up your time that you're interested as well?
I mean, right now, like in terms of like other games, I'd say one of my biggest hobbies, or not hobbies, but like stuff I just like to do, is pretty much right now at the moment, Zelda randomizers, because like they're just
Nice.
really really fun to do. They're like it's a very complex randomizer because like one
Mm-hmm.
item could help with like this thing or that thing, or it could help you to do like a certain trick. Like I remember like I wanted to get really good at like Ocarina of Time randomizers, for example. So I actually,
Mm-hmm.
even though I wasn't speedrunning the game and I have no interest in doing that, I still learned a lot of
Mhm.
tricks to like help out with that. And right now, I finally moved into no logic, so the seeds could be
Ooh.
impossible and just placed wherever that feels like it, basically. So it's
That's
really
crazy.
trying to get pushed. Yeah, those were a lot of
That's
fun. But I
amazing.
think before that, I don't know, like I all I have like a ton of game systems I would play. Like I've got a Switch, N64, a Wii, but I just haven't had much time to just casually play stuff anymore because of like me trying to
Right.
get the channel to grow.
Yeah, lots of work on that. I got to shout out Zelda randomizers are a lot of fun. We actually, for
Yeah.
They're
my little
crazy.
brother's birthday this last year, we got together. His wife called us and was like, "Hey, I want to put on a surprise party for him." And so I got I got three brothers, so there's four of us in total. And so we all got together and we surprised him with a Zelda randomizer, a multiplayer Zelda randomizer party. And
Those are
so
the good ones.
it was a lot of fun. So I just thought it's a fun time, like you said. I think it's an interesting challenge altogether to be able to kind of, see what you need, where are all the possible locations to find what you need, and so it's a lot of fun. So I
Yeah.
love that.
That's sick. I feel like that's such a fun game. I mean, I feel like it's such a fun just franchise of games to randomize. I mean, you never think about it. You hear about Pokemon randomizers all the time, but
Yeah.
yeah, Zelda
Yeah.
ones are good. That's a good shout out. That's fun.
Yeah. Pokemon, I think I've heard Pokemon was like one of the first games that actually caught on the whole randomizer trend.
Yep.
I may or may
Yep.
not
Oh
be
yeah.
wrong, but and then people started looking to like what other things could be random, but now it's like Zelda games, apparently Metroid games are random. Some people have
Oh,
randomized
really?
Breath of the Wild too as
Oh
well.
yeah.
That's
I
crazy.
don't know how
That's
that would
crazy.
work. It would just be like, oh, open this one chest. Oh, there's the Master Sword. Or, hey, look, there's a
Oh,
bow. It probably would
I,
just be weapon finding.
yeah, I would think so. I feel like for some games it wouldn't work as well, but for maybe some of the more linear
No.
games, obviously it would be a little more. I mean,
Yeah.
I think this almost opens up an entirely different can of worms, but I think randomizers are just so fun because it really
Yeah.
tests your game knowledge. It's these games
Yeah.
you grew up playing and loving, and you get to a point where even though the game's a classic and you love it, you kind of know it inside and out. So like with Pokemon, we're like, well, hey, let's randomize some encounters and see like if I'm kind of
Yeah.
forced to use X Pokemon
Yeah.
that I've never used before and find a more creative solution to a game. So it's
Yeah.
I can definitely understand why they're popular and how it's kind of transferred into
Yeah.
other games. So
Yeah. I don't know if you guys have ever seen it, but my fellow what do you call it? Friend with the stream. He and I do a lot of collab streams together. We try and help each other grow. His
yeah,
name is
Yeah.
Steve M Plays. We do like this. We stream together multiple times a week. Like right now, we're doing the Generation One backports, where we take like new
Ooh.
Pokemon and put them in the old games. And
Yeah.
I
I've
would
heard of
make
those.
I'd make the sprites. He and I would make the moveset, but we don't allow it for a challenge. We're not going to backport any modern moves. I mean, we could do that, but that would just be too much work.
yeah.
So we would have to do like one for one replacement as close as possible, which results in Groudon instead of Scary Face, it gets String Shot. So that's just funny. Plus, the biggest meme right now is if something gets aerial iced by TM, there's only one Gen 1 flying TM, and that's Sky Attack, so that's what we're giving it.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's just funny. So yeah, we're
That's
doing a
awesome.
bunch of
Groudon rising
backports
into the
right.
sky.
Yeah, I don't know. Apparently, have you seen Groudon use a flying type Z move in Gen 7? Apparently it flies.
This
So
is
yeah, like
it's
right now we're doing right now like 2 to 3 of those a week. We try to have different guests every time, like just other people who do the similar kind of stuff as us. Like I think today we've had a guy named Ike the Killer, and I think before that
Okay.
we did it. Well, we also do it with some just some loyal channel supporters who just like doing stuff with us, and we've even had some other high name people too. Like I mentioned before, we're trying to get RBY to do one with us, but
yeah.
we're just trying to schedule something out. And we
Right.
did one with Scott a few times. Like our first 3 were
That's
done with him
awesome.
specifically, and we also done one with Gym Leader Matt. Don't know if you've heard of him, but he does
I
Gen
have.
1 stuff kind of like what I do, but he really knows how to optimize games, especially. Like he'll just do the same thing like 3 or 4 times and just optimize it each time. Kind of blows me away what he does. Like
It's crazy.
If he wants to use like double edge or mega kick to avoid one trainer battle, he would do it.
Wow,
He would just deal
That's
with the
crazy.
accuracy. So yeah, he also does backports too, but he actually does backport like interesting moves, which is something different from what we do. So you can just see stuff really get overpowered. I remember he does something where he actually compares them to Mewtwo, and he plays a game called like Can It Break the Mewtwo Bar? But funnily enough, I think he's done like 15 or 16 different Gen 1 backports. Only 5 of them were better than Mewtwo. So it kind of shows you how good it is. Yeah.
That's fascinating, actually.
Going back to my backports though, because this podcast is about me, not Matt. So yeah, before we started doing the blue backports, we were actually doing Pokemon Blue and Crystal randomizers too. Not just the Pokemon, but we randomized the items as well. So like a potion could be a full restore, the TMs are shuffled with other TMs, and the trainer teams are random. And we would try and do it in a solo run style where our starters were random. We put the 3 options on a poll. The YouTube audience would pick one, and then we would have to go through the whole randomized game. And what I liked about doing that, you really got to see some Pokemon, like who they struggle with, you wouldn't see in a normal game. Like, for example, Jolteon, you may think has some pretty decent moves, but put Jolteon against a Marowak, you got nothing. But in the main game, I think only one guy has a Marowak. Or, for example, Machamp. Like, I remember Machamp was one of our best results in a randomizer. It's because we've encountered almost no Alakazams. Which ended up being interesting. If it didn't have to deal with Alakazams, like Sabrina, Machamp can do pretty darn good.
Right.
We also did Pokemon Crystal as well. We quit doing the randomizers recently because they weren't the best to try and grow with a small channel, because I guess randomizers just aren't as relatable to people to watch. But the backport's been more successful because people want to see how their favorite modern legendary does. So in the Crystal randomizers, we did like the same thing, except like it was an expansive world, Johto and Kanto. So there was just a lot of things you could go. And the whole time in the game, like the whole run is just trying to plan for red, because the Pokemon are random, but the levels stay the same. And it makes you realize some Pokemon have incredibly terrifying level up movesets. Like, I remember one of the worst was Ampharos, because it had, I believe it had Thunder as well. And Magneton, I know, had Zap Cannon and Lock On at that high of a level. Lantern also had Thunder. Some of them, their highest level up moves are just straight up terrifying. Makes you realize awesome. Lantern is a pretty underrated Pokemon in Gen 2. It's what we've realized, because it gets really good moves. It has decent stats, but I mean, who even played with a Lantern in Gen 2? Those things were not easy to find.
No, they weren't easy to find. But it's got a great HP stat, and then as far as like, you know, a water electric typing is a fantastic typing, you know. Offensively and defensively. So that's really cool. No, that's fun to kind of think about, and like you said, it kind of forces you to look at the game in an entirely different way and kind of plan with that end in sight, and it kind of affects how you look at things, how you strategize, and all that. So, and how you optimize things. That's really cool to look at. So
yeah, another thing I like about just the generic solo runs, like as you mentioned before, like I do a big variety of games. I mean, I know variety isn't always the best to grow, but I just really don't care. I really enjoy doing them. And I'm like one of the only guys that does a huge variety. I know Scott's Thoughts, he now does like 6 games. But like right now, I do around 9, hoping I'm supposed to be at 11, but I've taken a break from Gen 5 just to get some overlays stuff working. It's not as easy as you may think. There's a lot of code aspects involved. How I can get those like automatic stats and stuff. That's all thanks to like Scott and another guy for creating a piece of software to like read the RAM and like just output all that stuff. We can use code to read it and output it as text.
I was actually going to ask about that. That's really cool. I thought that was a really cool piece of your overlay.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the software's no longer online. The project has been like ceased development recently. So I'm not sure if I should or shouldn't give the name of it away. So I'm just going to say it's a piece of software. I just don't know what's going on with it.
Fair enough.
Yeah, it was taken down the day of the Yuzu decision.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I'm curious because with all this stuff, you know, kind of talking about getting into it, I'm curious, you know, so how did you kind of like, what is your Pokemon journey? How did you get into it? Did you play the games growing up? Was it the cards? And then how did you get into the speedrunning scene and the solo running scene?
All right, starting with as a kid, how I got into Pokemon. My older siblings played it. Like, they were the original, like, Gen 1 kids in the early 90s, but I was never born. I wasn't born until the 21st century, so I never lived in that era. but they had all the games, and I guess I was just interested in just what they were playing. I remember, I think the first Pokemon game I actually owned, like I got it given to me, was Pokemon White, and that's why Zekrom was always my favorite.
Cool.
Nice. I recently changed to Reshiram over time, but then Gen 3 and Gen 4, like I got those as hand-me-downs. Like I know, like I got Soul Silver, my brother got Heart Gold, and I remember we swapped at some point, so I have Heart Gold now. And we also got like Gen 3 cartridges too. But funnily enough, it was only Fire and Leaf Green. Like I never played Hoenn until the remix came out in 2014.
Oh wow!
Interesting.
Yeah, I never played Pokemon Red or Blue until 2018, and that was because I wanted to start speedrunning based on watching a few different people. I know Worcester was one of them, like one of the OG Pokemon speedrunners. And there was just some other random people who did runs, and I'm like, huh, that looks pretty cool. Gives me an excuse to replay the games while trying to learn. There you go. So the first time I ever played and beaten Pokemon Red was just me following a set of notes on Speedrun.com. I'm not kidding you.
That's amazing.
Yeah, but I mean, right now with like the whole channel, I probably replayed those games like a couple hundred times with the randomizers and backports and just normal runs.
Yeah.
And another thing that I really like about doing like all those games, you really have to learn like differences between games, just where certain stuff is. Like, I don't know if you guys know this or not, but in a normal playthrough, like up to the champion, in Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum, there is no way to get an item that boosts fire moves. They're all in the post game.
Oh, really? So it's like charcoal and flame plate?
Yep, all in the post game. You can't
really?
get them.
I didn't know that.
Because I was trying.
I never caught that.
All right, I want to do Infernape. Where do I get this stuff? Oh darn, I can't get it. But like some of them, you just gotta like learn where that stuff is. They just randomly scatter them everywhere. Plus, you just gotta learn how to like work around the game to route stuff in. Plus, you gotta learn differences. Like I did Diamond and Pearl and Platinum. There are so many differences with those games, and it's not just random people's teams, but there's also like item placements too that are different. Like I know, for example, with rare candies, you got to know where rare candies are. Half of them, between the two games, are the same, but some of them are different. Like they might have been moved to like a different room or something. But there's this one rare candy in Mount Coronet. You know that one room where there's like a body of water? It's all foggy in there.
Yeah, I know what you're talking
about. There's in Diamond, in Pearl, and Platinum. There's a rare candy like by the stairs to go to the next room. Between the two games, the only difference is they moved it 3 tiles to the left.
It's so random.
Yeah, I want to know the creator decisions. Like this needs to be moved over here. Perfect.
I have the best idea for Pokemon Platinum. We're remaking everything.
Yeah, I really do not know.
It's so funny. That's cool though. I think because Gen 4 is another big one I grew up with, casino games. So the differences between Diamond and Pearl and then to Platinum, and even the differences between Diamond and Pearl, because kind of like with you, my brother and I were super tight growing up, and the big thing that kind of bound us together wasn't just video games in general, but especially Pokemon games. So I got Diamond, he got Pearl. So I was always intrigued with even like the minor, aside from like the actual version exclusive Pokemon, just some of the subtle differences between it all is really fascinating.
Yeah, I grew up like very close with my younger brother because the older sibling compared to me is older than me by like 7 years.
Okay,
so they were pretty much moved out on their own when I was still very young. My brother's a couple years younger, so he was pretty much all I had growing up, and we just always played Pokemon games. I mean, we don't play it like as much anymore, but we still play a lot of different games together. And, what else was I saying?
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot.
No, you're good.
You're good.
I got short-term problems.
You're good. Well, I wanted to ask you, this kind of like leads into, obviously more of your content now that we've talked about your journey and kind of how you got into things and your hobbies. You've done a variety of runs in some of these different games. Is there a run recently or a Pokemon that you've used recently that you've found especially unique or interesting? Like I said, it's stuff from like your stadium stuff to Red and Blue to Pokemon Pearl. Is there anything that you've kind of come across, you're like, wow, that was really unique, or oh, hey, that was interesting. I never realized that before.
I know in Pokemon Stadium, at least, there's a couple of like really interesting Pokemon. You got to work with the rentals, especially since on the Switch version you can't just transfer stuff, so you got to work with what the game gives you. Exactly. For example, they try to balance out the weak Pokemon to the strong Pokemon, giving the weaker ones better moves. Abra in Pokemon Stadium 1 the Abra is actually the best hard-hitting psychic user. Like, using the move Psychic.
Wow.
Kadabra's got Psybeam. Alakazam has Confusion. And Voltorb and Electrode are also really good because they got Self-Destruct and Explosion, which can help deal with a random Pokemon you just don't want out in the field. And with other Pokemon, there's like Jolteon and Zapdos. The reason they're really good is because they have Thunder, which is one of the more powerful moves in the game, but it's 70% accurate, and half of the whole game is just hoping for Thunder to hit, which it never does.
Exactly.
Unfortunate, but
I did see two or three in a row today when I hopped into your live stream. So yeah, I was like, Steve, hey, here we go.
Yeah, Steve M. Plays told me there's something called the 30% rule. If something misses one time in a row, it will happen 2 more times, and then it'll start hitting. It has to be 3 times in a row. Always 3.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it does make a lot of sense. So I think you were asking me a question earlier about like how I got into speedrunning. I think I answered like some of the other people who were doing runs that I got inspired by.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have my Speedrun.com user leaderboard up. My oldest submitted runs are in Pokemon Red and Blue, but those runs are awful. Like, my current PB from like 4 years ago is a 202. That's 308th place right now.
That's not bad.
I mean, yeah. I mean, there's probably like 600 people on the leaderboard at this point. And
that's crazy.
I also tried doing Smash Bros on the 3DS at one point, just because they had like time trial modes that I would try.
Yeah.
And then I tried Fire and Leaf Green. I also tried a bunch of other games. This one game I'm really proud of. It's a random childhood game, but it was Ultimate Spider-Man on the Game Boy Advance.
Heck yeah, there we go.
Yeah, because that was I really liked Marvel and Spider-Man growing up. I don't really pay attention to much Marvel, but I do still like Spider-Man to this day. I watched the No Way Home movie a couple years back when it was out in theaters.
Yeah.
So yeah, with this game, like, you just go through like 7 different levels with either Spider-Man or Venom, and you just fight bad guys, rescue hostages, or you just fight each other.
That's hilarious.
I remember, like, no one was speedrunning this game at all. There's one guy who tried just a vanilla one-time playthrough. It was like 2 hours. But right now, I have the record at 42 minutes. But unfortunately, no one else has really submitted any runs at all. So like, I'm just the lone guy. But I just got really so optimized at that game that it was just kind of nuts just how obsessed I was with it. Like, I even discovered a bunch of glitches with it too. But there are some other games on here, like a lot of Pokemon stuff, a Kirby game or two, a couple Avatar games. Right here, another game I'm really proud of. Do you guys know of the spin-off from 2012, Pokemon Conquest?
I do, yep.
Yeah.
That's I think it's one of the coolest spin-offs ever.
Yeah, it's the most underrated one. Like, it's 12. The game just turned 12 years old.
That's insane. Honestly,
I remember seeing ads for it on TV when it was like coming out, and I remember I was in the GameStop store when I was turning 10 years old that year, and my mom was going to let me choose one game, but I couldn't play it till my birthday. And I remember right next to me there was a shipper for Black and White 2 that hadn't come out yet, and I'm debating, should I get the spin-off game that the cashier's showing me or Black and White 2? But I figured, you know what? It's probably the same as Black and White. I'll just get Conquest. And and then I see all these people to this day who don't know what the game is, and I'm like, then how did I figure it out then? I got the game day one. How did I figure it out? Like, I kind of know how some of those people feel now.
It's one of those games that's like, it's just a hidden gem, you know what I mean? Like, it's got a lot of awesome stuff in there.
Yeah, especially with like the whole RPG feel. Like, I started running the game just because it was my favorite side game, second place to like the Mystery Dungeon titles. And right now, I used to have the record in any percent because I found like a lot of strats for the game. I even helped out with some massive reroutes. I even worked on some of them on my own.
Wow.
It's still first place on the leaderboard, but this one guy I know did beat my time, but he just never submitted it, so I acknowledge that I no longer have the record. I even done some other insane runs. In the game, there's like 10 different legendaries you can recruit, but you have to go to like different stories, have a bunch of weird conditions. I speedran getting all of the legendaries. The run took me 27 hours across a few days.
That's insane.
You want to hear the best one though? The best one though was 100%. I routed that completely on my own, where I register every warrior in the gallery, all 200 Pokemon. Every warrior has to have all of their perfect links. So if someone likes Starly, they need Staravia and Staraptor too. They need it registered. Complete all the stories, all that stuff. I did the run over like 2 months, and the final time was 72 hours.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that's
insane.
That was the last speedrun I ever did before I took that hiatus from speedrunning for almost 2 years. I mean, you could probably understand why.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Seriously, though.
There is this one game, though, that's probably the biggest meme speedrun I've ever done of all time, and I was the one who started it. It was after I got it was when I originally got the 152 world record in Conquest, back when it was 152. It's now 148. I'm like, you know what? I want an easy game to do, something to get a free record. And I was digging through my old games, and I found a Dora the Explorer GBA game that I've played since I was 3 years old. I realized no one speedran it, so I actually tried to optimize it and upload a run. And not only the video got like 3,000 views, but the leaderboard on Speedrunner0218 that I helped to create, it's got 9 different people who submitted runs.
That's amazing. You reignited the community.
Yeah,
or you ignited it for the first time.
The community of an ancient Dora game. That probably
sold
like 12 copies.
You know what? We should have put that in the intro. We should have highlighted that first if we knew. That should have been what we led with, right?
Oh God.
Yeah, just kidding. That's awesome.
I'm curious, kind of in this. Oh no, you go really quick. You go.
Yeah, it's just the biggest meme of all time that I just helped create.
Yeah, it's amazing. Awesome. I'm kind of curious. So, let's say like there's newcomers who are looking to kind of get into the speedrunning scene, because it's kind of become I think it's one of those talents and one of those communities that is just really cool, because every game kind of has its own kind of like style, like routes that you're saying, and it's constantly evolving and things like that. I'm kind of curious, what tips and tricks would you suggest to newcomers to the scene, like in the general sense, but also specifically for the Pokemon side of things, like people who wanted to get into Pokemon speedrunning, kind of like you're doing in solo running. Yeah. What tips and tricks would you give?
The first thing I would do, if you ever wanted to get into like challenge runs or solo runs in general, it's got to be a game that you know pretty well and you love doing. And you just have to be willing to like watch other people and like just learn new things, because the speedrunners, like, they generally know more about the game than most other people do, including other challenge runners, because they just know about the ins and outs of the game. So you just have to be willing to watch other people, just practice, maybe try finding your own thing. But like, you're obviously not going to get first place. Not everyone speedruns to get first place. That's a bad mindset. Like, just think of it as racing against yourself. Like, just race to beat your own time.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. I think oh yeah, you go, Logan. You're good.
No, I was gonna say similar thing. I think it's a really cool mindset to say, like, race against yourself. You don't always have to race for first place. Yeah, I like that a lot.
That's especially how we did the solo runs, those streams, and the edited content. I'm only racing against myself. I'm not trying to think, oh man, what did Scott or Gym Leader Matt get for this? I gotta beat it. Sometimes I watch their runs for like how they tackle a certain fight, because like there's probably a hard fight. I don't know, like, what's the best way to solve it. But for most of the time, I don't end up watching other people. I mean, how I do it now, I just try and research Pokemon's stats and movesets, think of what a major weak point would be. Because when you play the game many times, you just know the most common areas where Pokemon struggle. Like in Pokemon, like Red and Blue, for example, a common point at like a lot of Pokemon would struggle is Misty if you're weak to water, or Sabrina if you're weak to Psychic. So you have to think, if it has any of those common weaknesses, what would be a good way around it? And then I would try and type up like a rough draft of like what I would do, what moves I would teach by level up or TM. And then I would do the run and see like where the major screw ups are and like how I could move things around. And then I would do a second run and then just call it there. Like, I know like some people would try and do more, like Matt does 3 runs. Steve and I just do 2. Sometimes Scott would just go kind of insane. He's kind of a perfectionist kind of guy. Like he will do like 10 different runs for a single Pokemon, even if it's to shave off like 10 seconds, because he's that competitive against himself.
That's great.
I do respect that about him, but I could not have time for that at all. I just can't do that.
Right. It's time consuming.
I was noticing today in your live stream that you were kind of like Do you have like a note set then for yourself as well? Because like I imagine it's like it's difficult to memorize everything. I mean, unless you're like done it a ton of times. But do you like kind of keep notes to yourself?
Are you talking about the stadium stream?
Yeah, the stadium stream that I saw, you kind of had notes going with yourself.
There was some Speedrunner.com's got plenty of resources and notes for people. Like the notes I was using was made by a user named Nix, and I'm sure he and just several other people just put stuff together in a spreadsheet. They probably had a whole team working together on notes just for people to use. I mean, I've had to make notes before and make sure it was easy for people to follow. They're definitely really useful to have.
That's really, really cool. I kind of love the collaboration aspect, like that I'm noticing kind of from our conversation, is that like the speedrunning community is really all about like optimizing the routes, but it's like they don't secret keep, right? Like it's like, hey, this is what I found. Anybody else found something different? And that's really cool. I like that a lot.
Yeah, speedrunners in general really don't keep tricks secret. They're generally very open about it, especially since most of the time they'll like stream attempts. And then people see them. But whenever there's a discovery, someone will always come out and say, hey, I found this. No, not many people really try to keep it a secret. I've heard some stories in the past from other people about some people trying to keep certain tricks a secret to make like a tool-assisted run or something. But then someone else goes out about it first, and they have no way to prove they were the first ones to discover it because they just didn't reveal it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've discovered like a bunch of interesting tricks doing those solo runs, especially with the piece of software giving me all the updating stats, PowerPoints and stuff. Here's an interesting one I just found out recently. I don't know if it works like this in modern gens. I discovered this in Gen 3. I was doing Emerald for a future video. You know the ability pressure where your PP usage is doubled if the opponent has pressure? Apparently in Pokemon Emerald, Substitute actually blocks pressure.
I saw someone, I can't remember where I saw this, but yeah, I watched someone, I don't know if it was a speedrunner or someone nuzlocking or something like that, and they were trying to keep track of PP, and they like, wait, yeah, on Substitute, it doesn't, that doesn't happen.
Yeah, that's crazy. I did not know that at all. Like, I know Substitute like blocks a lot of different things. It's really inconsistent though, like especially in Gen 1. Substitute actually does not block sleep-inducing moves, so you can get put to sleep behind a Substitute in Gen 1.
Wow, that's really interesting.
It's really annoying, especially for Agatha, like in Pokemon Yellow, because her first Gengar has Substitute, and for most Pokemon, if you have Mimic, it'd be pretty good to steal Substitute, so you don't get confused, you don't get toxic, stuff like that. But her final Gengar has Hypnosis, and that's always like a huge risk. Like, especially if you've seen like any of Scott's runs, he does 90% Yellow version. Like, he points that out a lot. Like, if you don't outspeed her second Gengar with whatever you're running with, even if you're behind a Substitute, you're not safe.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
That's crazy. But I wanted to say, it's cool to, like, as far as the tips you're giving for people who, even if it's just trying to kind of get into speedrunning in general, just the whole idea of, you know, not being too hard on yourself, being willing to learn from others, you know, be competitive with yourself, because that's really how you're going to ultimately grow. But I think you really exemplified one of these tactics of being willing to adapt. Like I said, I liked your Drapion video. It's funny because you're like, Drapion actually not that fun of a Pokemon to use, not that great. You're like, I was a little underwhelmed. But it was cool because, you know, the first run, you couldn't get past the Garchomp because you tried to go for a Silk Scarf return strategy. And even with like maxed out attack, you couldn't quite get the kill on the Garchomp. So you run it back and you totally change up the moveset, being willing to adapt and change your tactics. And I think you went like Dread Plate and Crunch, and with the stab, that was enough to take out the Garchomp. So,
the second playthrough, I had to go back with Crunch. My big mistake was not teaching Crunch by level up. I tried to go back and get payback, but the damage output just was not enough. And like, what makes me think Breakdown would have been cool is because, like, with the Sinnoh Elite 4, that bug type guy, Aaron, like his Drapion just always seemed to live several hits, and I knew it would get like Swords Dance, Acupressure, but like when you actually play the thing, like it just kept dying to so many different things. And it's like, man, I thought you would have been better than this.
Yeah,
it's competitive players. Oh, sorry.
No, you go. Yeah, you go.
Yeah, I know competitive players will figure that stuff out by like trying to see like what strats would work with them, but I just have a different way of finding that stuff out, obviously.
Yeah, for sure. And I want to ask you as well, like, because you know, it's not just speedrunning, because you're actually doing content creation as well. You know, so what do you enjoy the most about making content, editing your stuff, writing scripts, creating your overlay, live streaming, And and then what do you suggest for new content creators on that? We talk about new speedrunners and what you suggest for them. What do you suggest for new content creators on the other side of things as well?
I know Scott said this piece of advice one time that I really like. You got to make content knowing it's going to fail and it's going to suck. Because 99% of content does not succeed. And if you go in with the attitude of thinking it's going to succeed, then you're going to set yourself up for world disappointment. You got to expect this will probably get 15 views in a day, but it gets 20, and you're like, oh, cool, 20. I'm proud of myself.
Yeah.
Realize, it's the top 1% of YouTube that they get about 70% of all the engagement on YouTube. So that's why their videos look like they succeed. You just can't compare yourself to those people. You just got to compare against yourself, basically. Is it doing better, worse, or average than my other stuff? Not compared to this one guy, but to my stuff.
Yeah, that's really cool. Well, and I also really like what you're shouting out is that because the thing is, I think in a lot of ways we see 10 views is a failure in some ways, right? But if you really think about it, that's 10 people that saw your stuff
that watched your video,
and maybe 3 likes, right? But that's 3 people that liked your video, and and that's something that I think is really special, and kind of like how you're saying, you're working on kind of growing your audience and kind of bringing your passion to more people, but that sometimes it takes a while, and it's kind of I think like you said, you have to expect the failure or the grind of it, at the beginning. So I like that a lot, kind of really, really focusing on it against yourself rather than the other 70% of YouTube, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. When I started out, that's what I used to do, and it just was not really good for my mindset at all.
No. Well, because what happens is you end up not doing it for the passion of creating content, right? Because the second you start doing it for the numbers and for the recognition, I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with wanting to share what you love with a bunch of people. But as soon as it kind of the scales tip and you lean too much into the numbers and into all that, then I mean, we've talked to other people, obviously, with some of our guests, and it's there are times where if it gets to a point where creating content becomes a chore for you and it's not fun anymore, then you maybe need to take a step back and kind of readjust your mindset and change your perspective.
Yeah.
So,
yes, when you mentioned that, that happened to me several different times, and with how the algorithm works, taking a long break does not help your channel at all. What leads to a lot of people's channels just dying, even if it's for a week or so. But it's happened to me several times, and I've had to try to rebuild myself back up. I remember when Scott, about a year and a half, 2 years ago, he hosted his first ever community race with people because he was doing those runs. It was with a Pokemon called Porygon in Pokemon Yellow. The thing has a lot of different strats you can go for with it. It can learn agility and sharpen, psychic thunderbolt.
That's cool.
There's a lot of different strats you can do with it, and he invited people in the community to race with him. And I remember I participated in it too, and I strived really hard to try and get first place because I knew if I could get in the top, then he would talk about me in the video quite a bit, and it would be good for the channel too, especially for a shout out that big, not just a random shout out, but it has to do with the video. I did end up getting first place just barely, but it was really freaking hard to try and do that. And then when I did finally get the first place, and my channel got a little boost. And then when I was starting to make my, at the time I was trying to make edited content, it wasn't the same as it is now. It was mainly a lot less polished. I had different rules. I tried to play with a speedrun rule set where I allowed X items and stuff to try and minimize the levels and stuff. And those were the ones that got tons of views. Then I took a break for a month just because I was burned out. And then the views were just virtually non-existent. And something that I just do not like that happened to this day. It's just something I regret, but I know there's nothing I can do about it. The videos that ended up getting the hugest amount of traction on my channel are the ones I absolutely despise. They had no effort put into it at all. And so yeah, I should have been working harder to make better produced stuff, but at least I'm doing it right now.
Yeah, you're doing that. Yeah, and I think that's kind of the journey, right?
Yeah, and when one of you mentioned what's the part you like about making the content, it's a 50-50 thing. I like doing the gameplay. I like doing the voiceover, reacting to my own stuff. I hate editing. I don't even script anymore. Stuff, I just do improvised scripting, where I just watch the stuff and I try and make a script in my head. It was hard for me to get into it at first, but it does save time. And I have to spread editing out over 3 or 4 days because it burns me out very quickly. So if I can try to avoid the burnout, then I can try and keep a consistent schedule. Today, all I did was splice the empty parts out of audio, and that was all I did.
That's great. I like that. Oh yeah, go Logan.
No, you go. You're good.
I was gonna say, I mean, because Logan and I will kind of trade off on like editing the videos or making clips from like some of our streams or whatever. So it's like I just know when there are nights where I'm like, I want to get a lot done, and I try and sit down for a couple hours and try and do it. I get burned out, and I'm like, I really don't feel like doing this right now. But if you're smart and you kind of like, like, hey, I'm gonna make a schedule for myself this week where, like you said, I'm gonna just splice out the empty audio parts, and then tomorrow I'll come back and add some clips, and then next time I'll do some voiceovers, and then if you kind of space it out and just have like different tasks per day, I think it's a really good tip for other people as well. I think that's a great call out on your part. So, Logan, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna ask kind of like in this, you've been in this content creation for a long time now, and the skill set that you've learned and things like that. But I was kind of going back to maybe what is like probably the games of like Pokemon games that you've ran that you've enjoyed the most? Like, do you have like a favorite one that you're like, I love going back to this game no matter how many times and just running it back with a new challenge? I'm just kind of curious.
I have had this asked to me before by other people in my chat. It's a bunch of different answers. Like, in terms of like routing out like different ways I can do different fights, probably it's a tie between Heart Gold and White
and
version
Dora
2. I do White version. I did White version 2. I hope to get back into it, but I actually decided to go the extra mile and do it in challenge mode too, because I never played challenge mode as a kid. And a lot of the gym leaders just got really buffed. Like, they'll get an extra Pokemon. Some will get held items. The entire Elite Four, like, pretty much has a competitive moveset and held items. Like, it's just straight up nuts. And that's just something you really got to think about. But the main drawback, the average run takes like 4 hours. But
that's crazy.
Like in Heart Gold, for example, like there's also a lot of different ways you can solve fights, especially with like Red and Blue. But the problem is, like, half the game is just easy because you're 30 levels higher, because that's just how Johto games work.
Yep.
So I think in terms of like balancing things out, it would probably, I think my favorite game to like route out and runs probably Fire Red Leaf Rain right now, just because the games overall, like, they're not as linear. You can diverge into different paths, and you can just do the most optimal path. Like, if you can't do the grass gym, just go do the poison gym or do Rival 5. Like, it's not like I have to do Erica. I can't do anything else. I have to grind in the wild. Like, overall, I just do that. I mean, I play Fire Red Leaf Green just a lot more now, especially since I do the Fire Red backwards too. Like, I think this month we're doing the theme of Pokemon that have a bad ability but will no longer have it. We did Regigigas and Archeops, and I think the next two we're doing is Wishiwashi and Toadscruel.
Okay, that's cool. That's fun. I like that.
Yeah, because Toadscruel's got that ability which makes status moves go last. That's
trying to balance
Spore. It's trying to balance the fact it has Spore, but we're going to backport it. We're not going to backport the ability, so it's going to be a fast Spore user. Now, it's going to be really interesting to see how it goes.
That's so broken.
Like, yeah, I've got a whole leaderboard right here of like Fire Red runs. Some of them really surprised me. Like, I did Porygon Z a little bit ago. That Pokemon was just absolutely insane, because that thing gets Nasty Plot at level 1 pretty much, and Nasty Plot's not in Gen 3, so we gave it Tail Glow instead. Like, having a +2 special attack move just completely destroyed the game, but some others did not do so well. Like, one of the Paradox Pokemon, Slitherwing, like, its typing and moveset are just absolutely horrible. Like, right now, it's last place of the 16 backports I've done, and the next slowest is like 5 minutes faster. So like, that run just did not feel good to play. It makes you realize, just like, even though they're a newer Pokemon, like, the power, they get to keep most of their power creep, they can still struggle with some things. Especially, like, we can also see that in the blue backports as well, because some of the Pokemon we've done for those, hold on, let me bring this up. Okay, right here. Right now, our fastest one is Arceus, because the thing has like 120 in every single stat, and it really did not struggle anywhere. But there was one Pokemon we did that did struggle with some fights. We did Reshiram and Zekrom as well. Reshiram struggled a lot harder, because even though it gets decent Dragon and Fire moves, well, there's only Dragon Rage, that really shouldn't count. It gets decent Fire moves. But the problem is, with Fire types in Gen 1, Gyarados exists. And, like, Lance was especially very hard, because we had to learn on how, like, different unique typings can affect the AI in that game, because the AI goes off your typings. It'll use moves that it thinks is super effective, so it might use Rest on a Machoke. But, like, what happens with Lance is that his Pokemon were just spamming Dragon Rage, doing chip by chip by chip damage, and then his Aerodactyl would outspeed and finish us off with Hyper Beam. Like, even though we did 2 separate runs, we just could not find a consistent way past him. Like, it's real interesting seeing an overpowered Pokemon struggle with somebody.
Yeah, that's really cool.
That's crazy.
I love that. I love seeing that. Like, that's something you never think about. So that's super cool. So, we kind of talked about your content and things like that. We're going to kind of start moving over. This is kind of a fun section that we have called a rapid fire round. Right. This is going to be just kind of, basic questions, not nothing crazy, but like almost like a opinion of questions that you have. You kind of give us like your first thought, we just like kind of want to see what you think. And so the first one we have for you is, what is your favorite move animation?
Move animation. It would probably be one of the Reshiram Zekrom signature moves, that Fusion Flare, Fusion Bolt. But I would have to say my favorite one, I know Retaliate is one of my favorites too, just because like it has that little Japanese window screen and it just strikes them from behind. Or like Draco, it's really cool.
Oh,
just all the cool overpowered moves.
Yeah,
those are great. That's awesome. I love that.
We were actually talking right before you hopped on, and we were he's like, go back and look at the self-destruct and explosion animation from Stadium again. So that one's crazy. And then another video popped up that showed all the Mega Kick animations, and they give a specific animation to some like an entirely different attacking animation specifically for the kicking moves. And like we were saying, like Machamp does like this crazy Super Smash Bros. Donkey Kong-esque, like jumps up in the air and kicks with both of his feet, and then Kabutops like pivots on his, like puts his blades into the ground and then like vaults himself off of it. It's cool, some of the animations that are some of them. But
you know how Doduo and Dodrio use fly in Pokemon Stadium? They literally just kick their feet.
Yeah, I think
it's so good. But
doesn't make sense, but sure.
As far as some of the later gen stuff, I think obviously that come to mind are just the absolutely overpowered anime style Z moves. Like, they just look fun. They're just crazy. They just, they did a good job with those. I'll say that.
Yeah.
So
one of some of the most memorable Z moves for me included, if I remember the names correctly, Continental
names are
Crush,
crazy.
Hydro Vortex, and Mimikyu's signature Let's Snuggle or something.
Let's Snuggle forever or something like that.
It just engulfs the Pokemon and it's just struggling to get out.
Let's Snuggle forever. That's what it is.
Oh, okay.
It's incredible. Yeah, it's so good. I think just the best. One of my favorite ones is Ultra Necrozma, is the light that burns the sky. It just like sounds so Dragon Ball Z anime. It's just so good.
Yeah, that Pokemon is so powerful
it's insane.
In Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon speedruns. The only way to consistently beat it is to send out a Zorua disguised as a poison type. That's the only, and you have to use Toxic on it. That's the only way to beat it.
It's so funny because it was awesome. I remember when the game came out and people were like, because after X and Y, people were like, great, fun game, but so easy because gym leaders had Pokemon with 3 moves. They gave you like an extra starter. You had all the tools, and it was like a relatively easy game. And then Sun and Moon comes along, and that Ultra Necrozma fight comes up, and it was just funny to see. I watched like this reaction compilation on YouTube of everyone just getting smacked down over and over by the Ultra Necrozma, and they're like, "We have to resort to cheesing this thing. We can't even beat it straight up." They finally knocked us down a peg after all these years, and it's just it's a crazy fight.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, next question we have for you, kind of along these lines. What's your favorite side franchise, Pokemon franchise game? Whether that's like anything that's not the mainline games.
I guess if you don't count Mystery Dungeon, or I guess if you don't count Conquest, because that's like a one-off game. I wouldn't consider that its own series. But like my favorite like side mainline series is probably the Mystery Dungeon games, because the soundtrack, the story. I've only ever played 3 of them though: Blue Rescue Team, Explorers of Time, Rescue Team Deluxe. I've never actually played Super Mystery Dungeon or the other ones, but the soundtracks in those games are just excellent. Like whenever I'm doing YouTube work, I always find like 9-hour compilations and just play it.
So
that's a great.
It's a great soundtrack.
Great call out.
Story's great. Those are great games. I love them.
Yeah, but the people at IGN don't seem to agree. They only play up to the 5th dungeon and give the game a 30%.
So lame. Lame.
Yeah.
Kind of like the 7.8 out of 10 too much water. Even though they rated the original Owen games at 9.5 or something. they treated the remakes differently, even though it's the same amount of water.
That's crazy. That's crazy to me. All right. Our next one is what is the hardest Pokemon game to speedrun, do you feel?
I feel like in terms of the games I play, it's definitely White 2 challenge mode. Even if it wasn't challenge mode, it would still be the hardest because there's a lot of very interesting strats you have to do. Plus, the power creep goes up very, very quickly. Like, you're getting hit with Volt Switch from Emolga or Zebstrika. Berg can cause problems. Like, Clay will just use a turn 1 Bulldoze, you're slower, and then he just completely destroys you. Or like Skyla with that. Like, it's just it's very insane.
I like that. That's cool. That's cool to hear too. I like hearing that. That's cool. Now we're gonna kind of get into our shower thoughts. And so this is just kind of like the you're going about your day. We're thinking, all of us do is think about Pokemon. We breathe Pokemon, right? So random thoughts about the world and stuff like that. And so like the kind of the theories and stuff like that that exist. So Josh is gonna start us off with our first shower thought.
So very excited. Speaking of side games, we are going to be getting obviously a new Legends game. I don't know if you played Legends Arceus. Okay, we're big fans of it. Speaking of hard fights, that Volo fight where the Giratina has like that second phase at the end, also an insane boss fight.
Yeah, I mean it was really hard, but I felt like the surprise sneak attack just really discouraged me because I'm like, how am I supposed to defeat 8 Pokemon, especially since the agile style can let you attack twice? Like, I know people keep telling me they just love the battle mechanics, but part of me just thinks that strong and agile style, I think we're just kind of broken. Like, anything that lets you attack twice in one turn, especially on a trainer battle, like,
it's naturally broken.
It was very hard for me to win that fight.
Right.
But I wonder like what Legends ZA is going to do because there really isn't a precedent for the Legends games yet. Like I wonder like what they're going to do, but they haven't made any gameplay footage, so we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
So I wanted to ask in conjunction. So obviously with Arceus we got variant forms, right? It's kind of the big thing with a lot of the new games. So for Legends ZA that's coming out, what Pokemon or multiple Pokemon would you like to see get a new variant form? And if you have one in mind, maybe give us a typing if you can think of one or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
I know some Pokemon in Gen 6 that I really like that I think should get other forms. Like, well, I guess Flora just has too many forms. Like Talonflame would be a good one, or Pyro would be interesting. I think one of the most interesting Gen 6 Pokemon, Clawitzer is definitely a good one. Dragalge, Goodra. Ooh. Well, Goodra already has a form. That shouldn't count. But yeah, there's a lot of interesting Pokemon they could give forms to.
I like that. If you could do Talonflame, I'm just curious. Like, do you have like an idea of like what you would do?
Part of me kind of thinks it should be a Fire Dark type because like it kind of looks evil.
Yeah.
Evil. Like maybe you could just give it like the Thievul look or something. Make it dark flying or something like they did with Moltres.
Yeah, I was gonna say like Moltres. That's good. I like that a lot.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
Moltres and Articuno were really cool. I could not get behind the Zapdos though; it's too weird.
Okay,
its feet are too big.
Its feet, yeah, right. That's hilarious. I love
it. All right, our next shower thought for you is going to be if you could build out a special team for yourself. So, like, let's say, like, you were, kind of like one of the evil organizations and things like that. Like, what would your team be? Like, what would your theme be? Would you go with a typing kind of idea? Kind of idea like that. Like what if you were in charge of the evil organization of the Pokemon universe, or just like the rival teams that they have?
Yeah. I would not really stick to a typing theme. I would just use Pokemon that are either generally my favorites or I just use them in almost every playthrough. Like Crobat's one example, Florigist's another example. Let's see, another Pokemon I would almost always use if I had access to it. Gyarados was one. Who are some others that I always like to use? That's a really hard one to think about, actually.
Yeah.
Because there's not many, like, Pokemon that just appear in that many games, like those Pokemon do. But I know, like, one story I have with Crobat, I know this is a bit off topic, but it has to do with Legends. When I was playing through the game casually, I caught a Zubat because I knew I wanted a Crobat. I always just have one on my team. And then I had the Zubat, and then I heard a sparkle sound. It was a full art shiny, and it happened to be a Zubat. So I'm like, hey, buddy, I'm going to replace you. So I beat the game with a shiny Crobat.
That's amazing.
I love that so much.
Yeah. You guys want to hear what my first shiny was, actually?
Oh, yeah.
Let's hear it.
Yeah, my first shiny that wasn't the Gyarados was it was actually a Zigzagoon Omega Ruby. I was trying to navigate to Pokénav Dex chain. And I was on the first route north of Little Root Town. I was trying to, I think there was like a Zorua on that route or something in the remakes. And then I ended up just finding a Zigzagoon, and then I almost passed out because I'm like, I never encountered a shiny before. I still have it in Pokemon Home to this day, and it's a Linu now. There's other shinies I have. Like, I think half of my shinies are from Legends, because it's real easy to find shinies. A few of them are from Ultra Moon. But what are some other shinies? I actually have a shiny Stakataka from Ultra Moon. I don't even think that has the shiny boost that the wormholes have. I don't think it's applied to the beasts. So like,
I don't think so either.
No, I think it was just the regular Pokemon. Says I think that might have been a full on shiny. I wasn't even trying.
That's a cool shiny. I forgot that's what it looked like. It's instead of gray, it's like yellow gold kind of looking.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
I look forward to doing that one backported one day because its defense is incredibly high, but it's slower than a Slowbro or something like that. So it makes me wonder how it's going to deal with water type users in Kanto. I look forward to doing that one.
Yeah, that'll be really interesting because like because the special defense. So I guess my question for with like the backporting, because I know this like the special defense and the special stat in Gen 1 is like the same, right?
Yeah.
So would you give it because its special defense isn't horrible either. So that'll be really interesting. It'll be a really strong special like tank.
Yeah, we always just do the like I know Jim Lear Mac likes to call it the Chansey rule. Just give it the higher number.
Okay, no, that's cool. I like that. That'll be really cool to see.
On Friday, Steve is making me do this run because like he and I like work together. We're both YouTube members on each other's channels, like the first members pretty much. And I'm having him do a requested run. I'm making him do Gen 1 Eevee. It can only hit ghosts with items, so it's going to be fun to watch him suffer. But in return, he made me do one. He's making me do a Gen 1 backport with Shuckle.
Oh, okay.
Because, funnily enough, the last time I suggested him a run, it was in Crystal with Shuckle. I made him play Shuckle for 3.5 hours. And he just wants revenge. It's going to be real interesting, though, because like, its moveset's just absolutely terrible. It's got like the 10 attack. But interesting enough, due to the Chansey rule, it's going to have 10 attack, 230 special, but it doesn't learn any special moves. It's not even going to utilize it without Mimic. I'm actually considering getting Metronome for later fights and just hoping for Thunderbolt or something. Because I don't know what to do about that Gyarados.
That's amazing.
What to do.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that so much.
That's great. Yeah.
Do you guys like want to know like how like the process goes for making those backports? Because it's an interesting process.
I'm actually curious.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. So how it starts off, we generally have our third guest decide what the Pokemon is, but we did start off just making like a list of like 10 or so Pokemon that we would do in case we don't have a guest. We would make the moveset. We would take the moveset of the generation they were introduced in. So we're not going to use Gen 9 movesets with 13 level 1 moves because that would just be too confusing. Yeah. So we do the moveset of the gen they were introduced in, and we have to do 1-for-1 replacements. Like if we want to give it Mega Punch, do we see another 80 power normal move? If so, we give it Mega Punch. So that we have to take the moveset, and then we have to make the sprite work. Because the front sprites are actually tons of different sizes in the game to like preserve space. Some of them are real small, like 24 by 24, or like 32 by 32, and it can go up to 56 by 56. As long as it's in a multiple of 8, it'll work. So I just make the front sprites 56 by 56. I would like put like a sprite in there. It'd be all blurry because of how small I had to make it. And I would have to try my best to just trace it. Like, even though some people may not think tracing is like an R-worthy skill, I think in terms of sprite making it actually is, because you gotta try and make it look good. Like if it looks like the official artwork, you know it's a good sprite because of how small amount of pixels you have to work with. And we have to do I have to do the back sprite too. And since it's a Game Boy game, we can only use 3 colors. Black, white is a free color, and then 2 shades of gray. That's all we get to work with. So if a Pokemon's got like 5 different colors on it, you really got to try and make something work. And then we have another guy who works with us. His name is Jesco, but his username on YouTube is GameDevMadeEasy. He does the backporting process for us. He has the disassembly and some software to compile the game together. We just give him the information, and he just makes the game for us. So yeah, it's like a 3-way.
That's really
cool. That's awesome. That's really cool.
Yeah.
And then so like you said, you'll just because you combine the special, so whatever's higher of the special defense or special attack is what you'll use for the special stat in that game, right?
Yep.
That's cool. That's really, really cool. Oh man, the thing is, dude. Like we could talk all day on this and the nitty gritty of it, but
I love it. So
cool. we do got to wrap up. We're getting close to the time here, but I just want to give you a second before we sign off here to tease anything that you're doing for your channel coming up. If you want to hype anything up that's coming up for you, and then leave us if you got some words of wisdom. Leave the people with some wisdom, whether if that be Pokemon, if that be just life advice. And so just give us what you got.
So in terms of like stuff that's about to come, I don't know when this will be up on your channel, but I'm currently working. I don't know if it'll be out at the time or not, but I'm trying to work on Breloom in Pokemon Emerald. Like fighting, watching Scott and some other people made me realize fighting types are very overpowered in Hoenn, mainly because they just don't struggle with Watson at all because of that Magneton. And like if you're like in the Hoenn game with Steven Stone at the end of it, like you're just completely all good to go. And I know after that I'm working on a Heart Gold run with Garchomp. I would have had my second run done, but
nice.
I completely went under leveled in some fights and just got tons of resets, so I have to do a reattempt at it just because I screwed up.
Yeah.
And, I know this one project I want to work on. It's going to be off and on. One of the people who helps with my channel, his name is Axu Kairisora. He makes he helps make a lot of the backports for Fire Red because he has some ROM hacking software that all the other Gen 3 ROM hackers use. He's the one who helps me make the backported games. He was able to get all of the Deoxys forms available in one game because that's normally not possible. Because like the forms in Gen 3 are completely game dependent, which I think is just really stupid the way they did that. So what he had to do was go in the game and replace a different Pokemon with a copy and paste of a Deoxys just with that alternate form. And I hope at some point to do in the same game like a 4-way video between all the different forms because they got not only different stat spreads but also slightly different level up sets. So it's going to be really interesting, but I don't have a date on when that'll happen because that would take a long time to work on.
Yeah.
That's cool, though. That's exciting.
Cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, so words of wisdom. Honestly, you just got to, just make sure to make time for yourself, too. Like, it's good to be on a grind, but just don't do it too much because you'll just get burned out. And you want to try to avoid the burnout part. That's why I mentioned earlier, it takes me 3 days to edit a 30-minute video because I hate editing so much.
Right.
I love that.
Other than that, I pretty much said it all throughout the whole session.
That's the great thing. Yeah. You were sprinkling wisdom all throughout the hour.
Everywhere.
So it was left and right.
I'm the almighty wisdom expert.
There you go. Wisdom Runner 0218. Right.
There it is.
Speedrunning getting wisdom. That's great. So
I love it.
No, we appreciate it though. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for coming on. Like Josh said, we loved having you on. We love learning all kind of the behind the scenes stuff. Your passion for the speed running and the solo running is awesome.
So cool.
And for everybody out there, keep an eye out for what Josh and I are up to here at Skill Link. We're going to be continuing our Hardcore Elite Redux Soul Link as usual. We're going to be continuing the fun interviews that's coming up here as well. Make sure you subscribe to Speedrunner. Make sure that you subscribe to us here. And for now, this is Logan, Josh, and Speed signing off. We'll see you guys.